Welcome to the Outdoor Laboratory Podcast. I'm your host, Danny Capo, and in today's episode, I want to talk to you guys about the importance of protecting natural spaces. So natural spaces have been here way before humans have. And it may seem like a no-brainer that if we want to be good stewards of this environment, that we protect them. But our modern day practices prove that we don't believe this at all. Our pollution in the oceans, our pollution in landfills, are really detrimental to these natural spaces. Our air quality affects these natural spaces even if they're miles and miles away from where the pollution might be taking place. Now, I'm going to hit you guys with some statistics. 200 years ago, CO2 and methane levels never exceeded 280 parts per million for CO2 and 790 parts per billion for methane. Now, current concentrations of CO2 are 390 parts per million. And for methane, it's about 1,770 parts per billion. Now, both of these numbers are higher than they've been for the past 650,000 years. Now, if you know anything about history, you know that 200 years ago, probably one of mankind's greatest achievements was accomplished, the Industrial Revolution. Thomas Avery invented the steam engine in 1698. And that engine would evolve and would fuel capitalistic endeavors because of the high rates at which goods could be manufactured versus their homemade counterparts. So they were able to get product out to a lot of people and they were able to make a lot of money. But this came at a cost, and that cost was pollution. Fast forward to the present day, and what you find is everything is pre-packaged, covered in plastic, and zip-locked for your protection. We want to keep everything sanitary so that we don't get any germs that, quite frankly, our gut biome might need to live pretty healthy, you know? We might be ruining ourselves with all this plastic packaging, but I can tell you for a fact that we're ruining the environment with it. This prepackaged life that we live creates so much trash and so much unneeded pollution that finds its ways into landfills, finds its ways into oceans, because quite frankly, we don't know where to put it. We try to put it in every nook and cranny that we can find on Earth. And by doing that, we're making a mess. And as lovers of the environment, how can we combat this? Individually, we can start by buying in bulk. Don't buy single serving items, one-use items like plastic water bottles. Invest in getting a hydro flask or even get a Nalgene. Even though it's plastic, it's reusable. It's not a one-time use item. You can start buying local produce to cut down on the emissions that trains or big semi-trucks may cause. You can start by walking. Don't use your car as much. Reduce, reuse, recycle. We've heard them all. But are you practicing them? You can do that as an individual today. You can go ahead and do these things and really play your part. And as an individual, you can also vote for people in office who support these natural spaces. You can vote for laws that promote environmental regulation. And Flagstaff is actually a really good example of this. So air quality in Flagstaff is ranked number 5 in the whole United States. And it comes to no surprise because we're surrounded by natural area. We have thousands on thousands on thousands of ponderosa pine and thousands of aspen cycling air constantly. And that's the importance of these natural spaces environmentally, is that they're the lungs of the earth. They're what the earth uses to make sure that it can survive on its own. And it's taking out CO2 from the environment, helping us reduce the effects and offset them of what we've done with the Industrial Revolution with all this pollution. That rhymed. Industrial Revolution with all the pollution. You know, it's helping us fight that back. And so we have the top 5 ranked air quality, but it's not because we have natural spaces only, it's also because we have civilians that really care. There's a coalition of civilians who have gotten together and are trying to pass laws for anti-idling. We're against idling. So it's when you just have your car on and you're not moving. That makes complete sense. You're not using your car. Why do you have it on? You're just wasting emissions. And it's a great way to be proactive in making air quality better in their city. And that brings me to the main idea of this podcast episode, is showing you the importance of coming together as a group to advocate for the natural space and protect it. And natural spaces like state parks, urban trails, national parks, reserves, and public lands are vital in reversing these effects that we've brought with the Industrial Revolution. This, coupled with advocacy, can pass laws that rely more on renewable energy, pass laws that regulate emissions, and can control pollution, so that we could fix these problems we've created. And it's problems that we're facing in the recent history. We won't be able to inhabit this earth much longer if we keep on abusing it the way that we have been. And these natural spaces are ways that we can combat this emission crisis that we're having, this atmospheric unhealthiness that we have on our earth. But that's not the only reason why these natural spaces should be protected. Now, natural spaces, especially here in the West, have a lot of cultural significance to Native Americans. Now, another perfect example of a controversial topic that comes to this can also be found here in Flagstaff. So, Snowbowl is a ski resort that is found on the Mountain Humphreys in Flagstaff. And this is a very big economic driver for Flagstaff companies and businesses who get the influx of people coming in to use the ski resort. Now, this may seem like a big family fun. You know, it's a great way to go outside. I think so. And as an outdoor recreation major, I'm happy that people are outside exploring nature. And it may seem like a lot of family fun until you realize that Snowbowl, the 777-acre parcel of land that they have, is found on the San Francisco Peaks. The San Francisco Peaks are sacred and holy to 13 Native American tribes. Now, I don't want to mess this up and describe it incorrectly, so I'm going to read this off the internet. But I'm going to talk about the significance of the San Francisco Peaks, especially for the Hopi people. So for the Hopi people, the San Francisco Peaks were like the Axis Mundi. Now, I looked that up, and it's basically a place where heaven and earth meet. It's a physical and spiritual landmark that anchored their place in the world. The cloud-covered mountains are said to be the realm of the Kachina spirits, the mostly benevolent astral beings that in the times of legend taught the Hopi all that they needed to know to survive. Now, the Kachinas often take the form of clouds, and they are summoned to the earth by annual rain dances of the Hopi tribe. Living in the Arizona desert, the first rain of the season is understandably a cause for celebration. During Kachina ceremonies, Hopi tribespeople will don elaborately carved wooden masks that contain the spiritual powers that the Kachinas represent. The Hopi people were also able to determine the winter solstice had arrived by using the San Francisco Peaks. When the sunset would align between the peaks and their settlement in the Black Hills, they knew that a new year had begun. With a new planting season and growth of new life through many generations of careful study, the Hopi were able to use the peaks as a method for calendar keeping. So these peaks, for the Hopi tribe alone, have great significance. These peaks also hold places for rare animals and plants which they use for ceremonies, and there's also shrines found on these peaks. But Snowbowl has clear-cut more than 74 acres of alpine habitat to make parking, lifts, and runs, as well as bury a 14.8-mile pipeline. And what would this pipeline transport? This pipeline is transporting 180 million gallons of water a year. That's 1.5 million gallons of water a day. That doesn't sound right. Pardon my math. I'm a history major. It's 180 million gallons of water a year to make artificial snow. Now, Flagstaff doesn't have that much fresh water around it, making it impossible for Snowball to accumulate this much water. So, the reason why Snowball feels the need to use artificial snow is because sometimes it does not snow that much on the peaks, and their seasons are not long enough to justify staying open. So, of course, to combat this, artificial snow is needed. But there's no fresh water really there's not that much fresh water to let that happen. So they went to the next best thing, apparently. The next best thing is reclaimed wastewater. Okay? Now, to the Hopi people, this is where their gods, their religion is based on. This is like if you're a Christian, this is like someone walking into your church and peeing in your baptistry, in your baptism place. That's what we're doing, just so that people can go ski. We're putting literal toilet water, wastewater, literal feces water on a sacred mountain where there were shrines that were destroyed by clear-cutting this forest, just for artificial snow. This is the conundrum, though, is the Supreme Court has denied a rebuttal or trying to fight this anymore. So Snowball is free to do this. They're free to keep on desecrating a sacred place for the enjoyment of some people who want to spend money. There are so many other mountains that you can go and ski at that have natural season, a long natural season to ski on, that you don't even need to put artificial snow on it, much less wastewater. The mountain should be preserved, not abused. And that's where this comes into play, is we need to find the right situations, the correct situations in which to have a balance. Keep things sacred. You don't need to make money off of everything. And you know, it might sound kind of hypocritical, me saying, hey, go outside, explore it, but don't go skiing at this sacred mountain where you can have the great opportunity of the outdoors. But we need to remember about ethics, guys. Because this is the same behavior that killed a bunch of Native Americans hundreds of years ago when Europeans decided to conquer. It's the same behavior. We are not learning from history. We are continuing to repeat this type of abuse, not just on the land, but on its native people. We should be glad that we're allowed to still be here. You know, we shouldn't be abusing and using their sacred places. And the thing is, it's the amount of uncare that's going into it, because we can no longer fight this as supporters of Native Americans, or the Native Americans can also not fight this anymore because it's happening already. It's about 300,000 flushes of toilet water a day going on the top of these sacred peaks. It's so angering. It makes my blood boil. And these places have cultural significance. And you know what? The Grand Canyon National Park is also a place that has so much significance for the Native Americans. For many Native Americans, it's their emergence place. How could we as a nation just take that from them? Really, ask yourself that. It's a big conundrum that we face today as ethical outdoorsmen and outdoor women, you know? We need to figure out how we can repair these massive cuts that history has caused. And it rebuilds with us as individuals, with us passing laws, with us advocating for the protection of these natural environments, for their environmental impacts that they have, and also for their cultural significance. And another importance of these natural spaces is that it grounds us as individuals in reality, because we're in a real place that we could touch and that we can feel. John Muir stated that everybody needs beauty, places to play in, to pray in, where nature may heal and cheer and give strength to the body and soul alike. John Muir was one of the most influential people in creating the national parks. And I challenge him in his quote, actually. Because when you read his quote, he's kind of inferring a duality between us and nature, that we need a place to go to. And I agree with him to a certain extent. We do need places that are untouched, places that we can go to, places that we can experience nature for what it is. But we fail to realize that nature is in fact all around us, but we just covered it in concrete. Under the concrete are the same dirt that's in these natural spaces. It's the same stuff. We just decided to call this civilization. We need to realize that we're not separate from nature. We're surrounded by it. And we're reminded about that every couple years, or maybe every year during a hurricane season or a tornado. We're reminded that, hey, you're a part of nature too, man. We think that we are different from these natural environments, and that type of relationship isn't something that facilitates protection. Because if you look at nature as dualistic point of view, that it's separate from us, it's easy to just neglect it, and easy to say that, hey, we're producing pollution over here, but that's not affecting this over here, when in fact everything's connected. There's not two cycles of life happening on Earth at one time. It's all the same stuff. And it's important that we realize that. Now, I'm going to close with an experience that I just recently had that kind of angered me, but after some review, I realized its importance. So my parents came to town, and of course they wanted to go see the Grand Canyon, they wanted to go to Sedona, wanted to see some cool hikes in Flagstaff. And one thing that they told me they wanted to do, the first thing out of their mouth, was that they wanted to go see Horseshoe Bend. And Horseshoe Bend, for those of you that don't know, is a very famous landmark of the Grand Canyon. It's in the Glen Canyon recreational area, and it's close to Lake Powell. It's near Page, Arizona. And when I got there, I was there last semester with the Grand Canyon semester, and it was amazing. There was a bunch of people. It was a great time. And what I loved is that it was free. You know, people can just stop and go see it and enjoy it for themselves. And this last time that I went, I show up and I see that the National Park Service is constructing a toll booth, a fee area. For something that's been free for everyone to go see, they're constructing it to make money. And the bus driver who took us said that the prices are probably going to be upwards of $30 to go see the Horseshoe Bend, sorry. And I was appalled. I was like, really? We need to make money off of this natural place that people were able to go see for free, that now people are going to be like, damn, it's $30 to go see that. I don't think I want to see it. Like, really? How are you going to expect people to go and enjoy these natural spaces if you continue to make them pay for things? It's already $35 to go see the Grand Canyon. Come on, $30 to see Horseshoe Bend? Really? For real? Really? And then I looked it up. And I looked up that, in fact, Horseshoe Bend is a place where a lot of people like to vandalize. People, for some reason, want to leave their names places. And they've desecrated parts of Horseshoe Bend. And I mean, they've been able to repair these places, but that's at a cost. They have to pay people to go do that. So I thought about it. Do I want to pay my $30 and I know that someone's looking after it, or just let it be a free-for-all and it gets vandalized? A beautiful place. And that is the conundrum where people are at, is there's an importance of protecting these natural spaces, and there's also a time where you have to let people be people and go experience these places. Because if you want them to experience it, you can't just let it be open, because they're gonna do what people do. Because people, for some reason, like to be destructive. They can't just leave something sacred. And that's what I want to leave you guys with, is the importance of protecting these natural spaces. You guys can do this individually. We know what to do, the 3 R's. You can vote for people who care about the environment. Join a coalition, that is against anti-idling. It doesn't have to just be anti-idling. And be aware of native significance around you, of things. And be ethical. It's called being ethical. Be ethical with what you do, where you go. Be a person with integrity. Because you don't want to be a person who goes out and vandalizes Horseshoe Bend. I mean, those people don't have any integrity. For some reason, they just think destruction is cool. And because of them, things can't be free to everyone. And things have to have some level of respect. So it's important to protect these spaces. It's important to pay your fees, because it's how these places are protected, even though it kind of sucks. I hope you guys have a great day. Go and experience it for yourself.